cast a ballot. Well, 1.5 million of those are people who voted by mail across the state. And the new law allows clerks across the state to have the option of start processing those ballots. I want you to look at what we're seeing. That's actually taking place right now here in Detroit, where at those tables, those ballot envelopes are being cut open. The numbers on the ballots are being cross-checked with the numbers on the envelopes. And if everything is squared away, you see under the watchful eye of observers, those ballots are then placed into the tabulator. Now, importantly, we will not know the results until election night, but what this does is it speeds up the process so that on election night we can get those results reported more quickly.
Yeah, and Chuck, I want to go back because I can remember the scene where former President Trump complained about Michigan specifically and how long it took to get results in Detroit last election. He falsely called the process corrupt. How confident are election officials that you're talking to about that new process?
Yeah, there were really tense scenes where security had to be upped, where you had people banging on the walls. Election officials are saying that this process, here in Detroit at least, is going to let them have results by the 11 o'clock news. I want you to listen to a little bit more of my conversations with the election clerk here in Detroit.
Detroit is the largest municipality in this state, right? And as such, we should be able to present our reports earlier. I think it would show voters that the process is clean, that the process is open, and that it works.
Now, you mentioned this at the top. Not every jurisdiction is taking advantage of the ability to start working through their ballots. Some clerks are saying they prefer to just do it on election day, but you see Detroit is taking advantage of these extra days.
All right, Jack Brewster, thanks so much.
And be sure to join us for complete Decision 2024 coverage on election night. Special coverage begins at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's 2 p.m. Pacific on NBC News Now. And then it picks up on your local NBC station, 7 o'clock Eastern. That's 4 p.m. on the West Coast. I'll be anchoring overnight alongside Craig Melvin. So on the West Coast, that's not so late. You want to join me at 11 p.m. Pacific?
Sure.
I'll be there.
And now let's take a turn. With some Americans already going to the polls, U.S. intelligence agencies are warning that violent domestic extremists are seeking to disrupt the vote.
In a joint bulletin, the FBI and Department of Homeland Security say that candidates, election workers, even members of the media are among those identified as targets. NBC News senior reporter Brandy Zadrozny's here with a closer look. Brandy, you follow this stuff inside out, and the FBI and DHS are saying that these extremists have grievances rooted in, quote, election-related conspiracies. What kind of tactics are they concerned about?
They are concerned about a myriad attacks that could possibly take place. So this is really important to note. There was no specific threat acknowledged, but it was more like looking at the landscape in total. And they said that they were looking at, again, candidates, election workers, media, judges that are involved in election-related cases. And they are looking for attacks that could possibly happen at polling places, ballot drop boxes, which we've just seen. Several of them have been lit on fire in the recent days, and voter registration sites. Now, also the Colorado Intelligence Agency made a specific notice of insider threats that could possibly be involved in election processes, and that's troubling because, as we know, since January 6th, we had a large push from election deniers to get involved with their elections, to become poll watchers, to get involved as election officials. So that's sort of a new threat in this whole.
So insider meaning somebody works at the election polling place or something.
Or has somehow access to it.
Yeah, Brandy, can you put this in context for us? Did we see this during the last presidential election?
This is so interesting. You know, it's sort of a miracle that this bulletin exists in the first place, because up to 2020, and even, you know, through up to January 5th, there were all of these signs online that extremists were getting ramped up about disinformation, about these conspiracy theories of a stolen election. And we saw pockets of threats. We saw pockets of violence, like we were just talking about in Michigan, right? Like we saw those little events bubble up, but we didn't see these kind of bulletins. And partly it was because we learned that the FBI and DHS, they were concerned. They didn't want to seem like they were infringing on protected speech, right? But now it's so clear the damage and the violence that can come from this sort of rhetoric, January 6th and beyond, that the threat's just unmistakable.
All right, Brandy Zadrozny, thanks so much.
It's time now for today's CNBC Money Minute.